I'd like to welcome everyone. I know things are coming on and going live. We're going live on YouTube, live on Facebook, and live on not Instagram, but Twitter feed, and then live on my podcast channel, iHeart and iTunes Radio and Apple Podcasts with Bridges Live. This is Dr. Paul, and we're actually going to have the Federal Association of the Advancement of Visible Minorities.
Welcome everyone. I know things are coming on and going live.
That's the conversation we're going to have today. Is about our global movement that our association is having. I mean, we've been doing a lot of work for many years, and I'm fortunate enough to have a friend, colleague, president of the Federal Association of the Advancement of Visible Minorities, and Raphael. Come on in, Mr. Raphael Luis. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be back again. It's been a long time, but we've been in touch, and it's a great pleasure. I'm very happy to be back again because the time is now.
The time is now. You know, your country now. Oh, let's catch people up. Now you're in Canada and I'm in the United States. I'm the executive director of the United States chapter and trying to push this along. But you've been busy, been flying. Now let's start with people don't know, what is the association all about? What is our federal association all about, and why you started over 20 years now? Am I right? We're 20 years.
Yeah, we're getting there, 18. And for the most part, I was extremely fortunate to have been coached by NAACP leaders back then. They coached me, mentored me into understanding civil rights. And then they gave me direction on how to create the civil rights movement. So I give a good chunk of credit to, I don't remember, but back then it was Nelson B. Rivers. I don't know if that name rings a bell to you.
It does.
He was one of my mentor, my civil rights mentor. I was extremely fortunate. One day I will give more praise to that. So that's how we started, because I was in touch with them about what we should do about inequalities here in Canada, because the countries are so close. We're the longest borders in the world, biggest economic trade.
Yes.
But we still have the same civil rights challenges. That's when heaven sent me Nelson B. Rivers, and I had other NAACP leaders. I can't remember their name, but that's the root foundation of the FAAVM in terms of civil rights, because both countries experience same civil rights, minorities issue, exclusion, socioeconomic disparities. So it made sense to be coached by them, to have a similar movement between Canada and US.
Now, you know, when people talk about visible minorities and exclusion, right? They seem to think it's something of the past instead of something that just constantly happened either behind closed doors or behind closed boardrooms. Being either you ran for government in Canada, you not only do you witness it, you go around, we talk around the world. Let's first talk about how many countries are we in?
Oh, we are in at least 68 to 75 countries growing.
As an organization.
As an organization. And you know, minorities around the world, it's a huge population, 1.2 billion growing, almost 2 billion.
And these are not just complaints. These are actual incidents that's happening around the world, from the Middle East to Africa to all over. People are having exclusions, right? So let's talk about exclusions. What is happening? Because you get it all filtered through you. It all comes to you. There's a lot of exclusions going on. in the United States, around the globe. Let's talk about some of those exclusions.
Well, if you start look at the ladder of the socioeconomic, you have the major corporations, you have government, you have the huge machine, and bottom line of the economic ladder, you find minorities always struggling either to get their local business off the ground, either to get a business loan, either to get a good college tuition, education, either to get good health care, a good clinic, or a good healthcare plan. All of those are enshrined policies against minorities that they don't have the same access. I'm not going to say privileges because we all human beings. We are entitled to same privileges as everybody else. But now we're looking at those, businesses. Most minorities don't get financing from the bank. That's a fact. You go to the bank, your minority business, chances the bank's gonna loan you $75,000 slim. And other groups walk in the bank, they don't know nothing, they just sign a check to them. So all those disparities leading to impoverishment. Our communities are becoming more and more impoverished, not because we're not capable, we don't have the opportunities, because you have those policies that keep us impoverished. And poverty has become now an industry because a lot of people getting rich at the expense of marginalization.
Now, how I don't think we should be allowed to convince anyone. And I think if anyone has any questions on Facebook or LinkedIn, they can ask any question they want, and then we'll talk about it. But or if you just want to email me anytime you want to. But I don't want to talk about convincing someone of someone else's struggles, because it doesn't work. It never worked, does it?
No, well, you can. The best thing you can do is expose the situation, because for the most part, people are in the situation, they don't even realize that they are in the situation. The only way, that's one of the great things you're doing with the show, is to create that understanding, that sense of awareness. So once people hear what's going on, they're gonna be looking at things differently.
Now, before we talk about the things that we can do as people, the association started an education program. We started a micro funding programs. We started some healthcare programs. Let's talk about the things that the association has done.
Oh, we've done many things, from healthcare reform to lobbying. Now we're proposing legislation. So we've done a great deal of work with that. And the same topic, we have established some partnership with the government, because we need to work with everybody to tackle the situation. And we have established some great partnership with the government. So that way you can push the agenda, and those that are part of the problem can now be part of the solution. So
and I know we push some associations with the UN, the United Nations. We've gotten some association with that. We've gotten some associations with the World Health Organizations. So we got things that are moving in places, because this is more about information. So and people say, well, we have all these nonprofits, all these NGOs out here fighting for human rights, fighting for this right, fighting for that rights. And it seems like everyone's talking about certain rights, certain people, certain things. And we're not all singing the same tune. Why do you think that is?
Well, the biggest difference you have, that's why most people rate the F.A.A.V.M as the 5th best human rights organization in the world.
Right.
Simply, I'm gonna give you a little, I'm gonna tell you a little secret. I knew back from when I was being coached by the NAACP leaders, I knew I wasn't into this for a short term. Like you see a movement come, movement rise so fast, and then 5 years later, or even 2 years, they don't even last. So when you look at systemic marginalization, systemic socioeconomic disparities, minorities are working in the same position as other people. They're getting paid at least $12,000 less. You have income, equal employment opportunity issue. It is an issue. And when you see all the systemic disparities, the best way to counterpart a system is to create another system. So when you look at the structure of the FAAVM, it is built as a subsystem that is not going to be here for the 5 years. But hey, it's all, as you know, we're almost 20 years. So you know something real is going down. So it's not a movement, 5 years, 2 years, 3 years. It is built as one of the best. So we've been rated 5 best in top of organization of the world. So as you see, we establish the FAAVM as a subsystem. And when that subsystem start moving, we're gonna, at some point in time, we're gonna have to start the engine to test the flight. So when that system start running, is going to tackle employment inequity, like salary, people that are working less. It's going to tackle the healthcare system. We're going to launch capital investment project for minorities. We're going to build business loan and entrepreneurship services. So we're going to have a subsystem that is working to eliminate disparities instead of fighting Goliath.
Right, because we know, and we talk about all this, that we are not depending on something else to help us help visible minorities. We're not asking we're not asking governments to help us. We're asking governments to allow us at the table. There's a difference.
Right, because in the ladder of the structure of governance, you have government, corporation, and NGOs. And what the advantage the FAAVM has, we have a position of power, believe it or not, because when you take things at the international level, now we have more countries behind the FAAVM than the government itself can count as allies. Most countries don't have so many allies.
It's true.
But when you look at FAAVM, all those countries, they are our allies. When this year I went to Tunisia, it is an ally of the FAAVM. And if you travel to a country, for example, where we have a FAAVM ambassador, you may not even have to pay hotel or nothing. You'll go, you'll meet. It happened before. One of our ambassadors went to India, and another FAAVM ambassador hosted him. He was so happy, he thanked me. So it's a family, it's a structure that will complement government in the ladder of humanitarian assistance, justice system. We need to do something with the justice system as well, because at some point in time, we need to prohibit. So far, one of the main targets we are gearing toward is to make discrimination or racism illegal in the Canadian Constitution. That needs to be done.
And I know we're trying to do that in Mumbai too. We're trying to make discrimination illegal.
Right. Because if it's not illegal, between the line, it's legal.
Right. If you don't have, this is not what you should be doing, then people are going to do that and say, well, and then so here's I'm going to play the little advocate against. If it's illegal, what could be punishment? Like, not that you can come up with a punishment, but what's your idea of a punishment of someone who's doing discrimination?
Well, when the Senate or the legal branch of government decide to make something illegal, as you know,
Right.
here we have the criminal code that classified felonies, crime, etc. So if they make it illegal, they would eventually have to change the Criminal Code of Canada. Section 3 define an act of discrimination, racism as such. And if that goes in the Criminal Code of Canada, when such act is committed, the police will come to investigate. They will investigate, and depends on how they put that into the criminal code. Some accusation depends on the level. They go with certain sentences. It could be 6-month probation, some it could be jail time, so on and so forth. It depends on how they would formulate it in the criminal code.
You know, like, because even here in the United States, we already have codes on the book that's supposed to be what you call hate crimes. You know,
Right.
and yet it's very hard to get someone on a hate crime. You may get a person on another crime, like say, just off the top of my head, say if someone shoots someone of a different race, different color, different religion, order, and it's hard to prove that they did it because they hated that person's XYZ religion, faith, color. You know what I mean? They'll probably get them on a shooting crime, but it's hard to get them on a hate crime. And that's going to be tough. Even in international court, we know there are many countries and people and leaders in countries that we can't even get them convicted on the international court because it's hard to pull those pieces together. Does that seem like it's out of reach, or should we just try to say that we're fighting for you? Like,
yeah, you're right. You have the instance where there is they have laws that prohibit hate crimes, but at certain point in time they should have a definition of what hate crime is, which I suppose they have. They can't have a law without definition. So if they have that definition, what the hate crime is, sometimes what you do, you should have mechanism to enforce the law and have institutions. That's what's lacking. That's where FAAVM comes into play. We do all that. We take complaints, we go to police, we get police report, we investigate, the police investigate, we combine our effort, because we had a case where we had people go free from prison being wrongfully incarcerated. We dealt with those cases before. So we would need some type of law enforcement, the same way they have the police to enforce the law, the same way you have the FBI, the CIA, the same way you would have the Department of Hate Crimes, where they investigate, they put the law, they put policies, all the stuff. The same way they can create an FBI or CIA, the same way they could create a hate crime branch as well. So again, that's what we're doing in Canada. In Canada, we have the same secret service similar to FBI or CIA. But why don't we have a department that investigate, prosecute hate crimes? We have hate those. Crimes. That's a balance.
Right.
It's a balance we don't have within the jurisdiction, juris system, constitutional system that we seek to establish with the FAAVM. I hope that makes sense.
It does to me, and I hope it makes sense to other people. And I want people to ask questions. You know, we said this before the air and came on, that we do so much, and there's a lot of steps involved. Where we are in these steps and how far we get to the mountaintop, we can't do this alone. And I don't think anyone can do anything alone. But we got to have, and that's a tough word to say. We have to have. But must have first understanding about who people are and what humanity is, because I think we've lost that understanding of what humanity is. Not my choice of humanity, but humanity as a global family. This is because otherwise there's always this against and for and this type of fighting. It's very disruptive.
Right. Well, if you look at the system, it is most likely
What's Go ahead,
everything
sir. Go ahead, Raphael.
dehumanizing. You take a guy commits an offense, he goes to prison, he comes out worse than he went in before. Dehumanizing him, sodomizing prisoners, they put them into forced labor, and then you call it correctional department. You're going the rehabilitating. Right. It's the method. So it's dehumanizing. There's a place they torture people. They come out worse. So us, again, that's when the F.A.A.V.M comes into play. You see how we establish a global partnership of like-minded. It has become a force. So other aspect of those kind of institution, we need to establish a force, because the other institutions that are systemically adverse to our rights and fundamental freedom, they're powerful, they have a force, and they have even enforcement mechanisms to push their policies, to push their agenda. So it's up for us to create our own force, twice as powerful or 10 times more powerful, to be able to survive and to remain, humanitarian sane in our mind, sort of speaking.
Well, you know that with government, we know there's corruption, and how, and we are very cognitive. We're very careful about corruption in the organization. Now, being the leader that you started this and you've created this family, it's amazing that we've had no corruption. Now, so it is possible to actually have an organization, a company that cares for people, looks out for people, embodies people with no corruption. Now that's got to be a testimony to our leader. You're a fierce, but you don't look at yourself as a leader. You just look at yourself as you're more of a cheerleader than a leader. And that's amazing. I have to say that's what's so kudos to you. You're more like a cheerleader than our leader, and I love it. I just love you so.
I see myself as a servant. When you serve a cause of greater importance to humanity, you become a servant. I see myself as a servant. And quite honestly, to be able to serve this purpose, it's probably what I was born to live for. And this justice, injustice, this is greater than me, greater than time. And to me, I am a servant. Yes. I am at service, just like just like in the military.
Before we take off, we don't want to take up too much of anyone's time. We want people to understand what the F.A.A.V.M is. We also want people to understand that service to humanity is more than yourself, like you said. Give us that informational speech, that commercial that lets people know that we are here doing what we can do.
Well, let's put it this in a short way. The F.A.A.V.M is one of the few top 5 that is built as a systemic platform to vehicle humanitarian aid, humanitarian project, to promote human rights, to step up, to correct injustices in the world. In that, we have a global partnership with over 60 countries. And now we're launching toward investing back into communities that are socioeconomically less disadvantaged. And most importantly, we are building up a global partnership. So we have become a powerful force, not to fight against giants, because giants don't fight giants.
No.
Giants compete next to giants. So now we can compete at any global level with any top-notch corporation. And that, for us, is our standard has met the highest standard of any other company. And we need to take our place. That's the symbol of FAAVM. We have our freedom, we have our fundamental rights. We need to step up and say, hey, this is my rights. I'm not asking you to give me my rights.
Right.
I'm taking my rights. It's my fundamental rights. And that's what the FAAVM for. It's for us to take our place just like everybody else, with a platform that promote, protect, and enforce our civil rights and human rights under international human rights standards.
Right, right. And it's funny you say that, the human rights. I have a book right here. You know, what are human rights? I mean, if people, this is like knowing what your human rights are, what your living, breathing rights. You know, you have rights, and it's time to not ask for it, but take it back.
Take it back. That's right. It's mine. That's the spirit. That is, yes, exactly.
All right, brother. We will keep doing. We will have to do more of this, because I know the health of the FAAVM is strong, and like we're getting, like I said, we're moving towards 20 years. We're the fifth strongest NGO in the world. I mean, that's very amazing to say. And I have to say, like I said, from all of us ambassadors and people who are working in the FAAVM, we want to say thank you, Raphael Luis. Thank you so much, brother.
Gratitude always.
Yes. And God bless. So anyone has any questions for us about the FAAVM, please contact me, and I will make sure I pass over to Raphael. And if you want to know more about our organization, you can always go to the FAAVM.com. You can find us there. We'll come right up, and you can look about what we're doing with education and microloans and the things we're doing across the country. It really helps us to help others if you help join in. Don't give us money, join in. And that's more.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
You know, we don't need your dollars. We need your effort. There's a difference.
And your effort has more value than your dollar.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, brother. You have a good night, and I will talk to you later.
And we do this more. Thank you so much for having me. It's a great pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, brother.
All right.